this movie is strangely engaging. Like I was sitting in the cinema really wondering what's happening on this little military station in the middle of the ocean. So the plot basically is that it's 40 years in the future and the entire world is covered with water except for two tiny land masses. It's not really explained how big they are. On the map they are called Northland and Southland. I'm not sure if that's the actual name of the nations who are on these land masses, but it's basically two nations and they're at war with each other. In the middle of the ocean, halfway between both sides, is the station, and their job is to look out for the enemy, and if they come closer, detonate a giant explosive device. It gives off radiation, so I'm guessing it's a nuclear bomb or a fusion bomb, and it is stated that it's strong enough to create a tsunami so that both land masses are basically damaged beyond recovery. So it's kind of strange. And the premise is that the replacement for these four people doesn't show up, so they're on there much longer than they should be, and they want to go home, or the two low-ranking soldiers want to go home, and the sergeant who is in charge wants to fulfill his post. Now for some little spoilers, so if you want to watch the movie, skip the next 2 minutes and just watch like the last 30 seconds. One day a boat shows up and they bring it to the station, and it turns out that that is actually the boat of the replacement, but the replacement is nowhere to be found. So they want to fix up the boat and leave. Meanwhile, the sergeant retraces the steps of the boat with the GPS coordinates and figures out that it was driving away, like it was in a curve, and then it drifted back. So they were driving away, something happened, and then it drifted back, which is interesting. At the same time, it turns out that the radio contact they have with home base isn't actually a radio contact, it's just that the radio repeats the message they sent the day before back to them. So they were actually talking to themselves, and they don't know for how long. Then a lot of things happening. The characters are actually very interesting. Like the engineer wants to go home to his family because when he left, his wife was pregnant, so he doesn't even know if he has a son or a daughter. The sergeant wants to fulfill his duty because apparently he lost some people before, and now he doesn't want to forget his duty ever again, and that was basically the only command he can get, so it's his redemption arc. One guy was apparently sent for prison, but he got the choice between a long prison sentence or 2 years on the station. And then there's another woman who's apparently there for the money. So then a lot of things happen. I don't want to spoil too much, but then in the end it turns out that one of the crew basically lured the boat away with the beacon of the station. So they thought they were driving to the station, but they were actually driving towards the boat, killed them all, and threw them overboard. Because one of the people, and I don't want to spoil which one, is apparently from the other side. And he wants to collect the bomb to bring to his side. The interesting thing is that apparently they're all there for 2 years, for over 2 years. And just now this plan kicks into effect. And it's never explained why. I'm guessing it's because he needed the boat of the replacement to actually get home. Or how he would bring this device home. And it didn't really work out that way. In the end, it turns out that the engineer was able, because he was asked during the movie if he can disarm the bomb, and he could. And when they want to detonate the bomb so it doesn't fall into enemy hand, they just place a recording of the engineer, and yeah, it didn't explode. You could say that the ending is a bit cheap. It would be funnier if the entire station would explode and basically that's the end for humanity on the planet and animals take over, which would have been interesting. There's a bit of a not really boring ending because the implications they are still on the station, pretend that the bomb is real to keep basically the two warring nations at bay. We never see these nations, so technically speaking, they could all be dead already, and there's nobody left, and they don't know, but they're trying to remain in this status quo that there's a device who could end all life, and they pretend they still have control over it. It is good acted, like the actors all make a good job to portray the craziness that takes hold of you if you are like for 2 years on this tiny station. They're all quite good characters. Like I said, you have the engineer who is a bit crazy because he wants to go home to his family and his child he's never seen, and he tries to build a share, and he is quite entertaining. Then you have the sergeant who just wants to do his job, and the two in the middle who are somewhere in between. It's hard to describe why it's an interesting movie, but it is interesting because you want to know what's happening. Why the ship is empty? Why is there an empty ship suddenly floating around? What happened to them? And then you have the intrigue with who is the traitor? Is there a traitor, or is there just somebody who just wants to go home and doesn't want to deal with sitting in the middle of the ocean anymore? And the question, is there even a home? Maybe the radio signal is kaput because there is nobody left to receive it. Maybe nobody manipulated anything. There's just nobody left. Could also happen. It's quite interesting. And given all the other high budget movies that are currently around, this is probably a movie worth watching. It's also not too long, so it's nice. So I would recommend it. Give smaller movies a chance, and this is one of those movies that should get a chance.